Welcome to one of the darkest chapters in human history, Unit 731. Facility known as Unit 731 carried out some of the most horrifying human experiments in history. Civilians and prisoners became subjects in a brutal pursuit of biological warfare, where science became twisted and inhumane. Today, we uncover the secrets of Unit 731 and reveal the terrifying extent of its experiments, a part of history that remains one of the darkest chapters of the 20th century. The year was 1932. Japan had invaded Manchuria, and in the shadows of this conflict, the military established a covert facility, calling it Unit 731. Officially, it was labeled as the Epidemic Prevention and Water Purification Department. But beneath this deceptive name was a lab dedicated to developing biological weapons. Japanese scientists and soldiers aimed to create viruses and bacteria that would silently devastate their enemies, and they began experimenting on civilians, mostly Chinese, along with prisoners of war from Russia, Korea, and the Allied forces. One of the most chilling experiments was hypothermia research. Prisoners were taken outside in freezing temperatures, stripped, and left exposed until their limbs were frozen solid. Some limbs were submerged in ice water, while others were left to the elements. The Japanese doctors would then smash the frozen limbs with hammers to study frostbite's effect on muscle and bone. Through these brutal methods, they sought to understand how the human body endured extreme cold knowledge intended to improve Japan's military tactics in cold climates. Unit 731 took medical horror to a new level through vivisections performed without anesthesia. In these procedures, doctors dissected living prisoners to study the effects of diseases on organs in real time. Individuals were infected with plague, cholera, and syphilis. Surgeons would then remove organs such as the lungs, stomach, liver, and even entire sections of the digestive tract while prisoners were fully conscious. Feeling every slice and incision, they were test subjects in an attempt to create a biological weapon that would ravage entire populations. The reach of Unit 731 extended far beyond the walls of its lab. Entire villages became test grounds for biological warfare, with diseases released upon unsuspecting civilians. Infected fleas, laced with plague, were dropped from airplanes onto villages. This led to outbreaks that killed thousands. Other methods included contaminating rivers with cholera or typhoid, spreading diseases that tore through communities. The goal: to refine methods that would eventually be used against enemy forces. Prisoners in Unit 731 were also used to test various weapons, from grenades to flamethrowers. Subjects were tied to stakes in fields while soldiers detonated explosives around them. Shrapnel wounds, burns, and blast trauma were studied, all to improve the effectiveness of weapons used in warfare. The agony experienced by these individuals was unimaginable, as they were turned into human test dummies for the Japanese military's weapons development. Doctors there tested pathogens by injecting prisoners directly with deadly bacteria. Some prisoners were given tuberculosis, anthrax, and other diseases just to observe how symptoms developed and spread. These infections were meant to simulate battlefield conditions, where enemy soldiers could be infected and then spread illness throughout their ranks. Doctors recorded the suffering, detailing each stage of disease progression in excruciating detail. One of the most disturbing aspects of Unit 731 was the deliberate infection of prisoners with syphilis and other sexually transmitted diseases. Men and women were forced to spread the infections to study disease progression in different populations. Some were left untreated to observe long-term effects, while others were vivisected to examine organ damage. Doctors kept meticulous notes, using these findings to further their understanding of biological warfare. With Japan's surrender in 1945, Unit 731 was dismantled. But instead of facing justice, many of the scientists involved received immunity from prosecution in exchange for handing over their research to the US. The immunity deals protected these war criminals, who continued their lives without accountability. The survivors and families of the victims were left to suffer in silence, and the atrocities of Unit 731 faded into obscurity. Unit 731's horrors live on, a dark legacy urging us to remember what's possible when humanity and ethics are cast aside. If this video impacted you, consider sharing it. We must never let these stories disappear. For only in memory can we hope to prevent such atrocities from happening again. History holds these lessons not as ancient events, but as a reflection of what we must guard against in the future.